The sound of laughter filled Mama Rose's kitchen as 3 generations of Johnson women gathered around the worn oak table. Zara Johnson smoothed her silk robe and smiled at her grandmother, who was carefully arranging fresh collard greens from her garden. "Baby girl, tomorrow you become Mrs. Marcus Thompson," Mama Rose said, her weathered hands gentle as she touched Zara's face. "I remember when your grandfather asked for my hand. Different times but the same butterflies." Zara's heart swelled with joy. At 28, she had built a successful event planning business, found her soulmate in Marcus, and maintained her closest friendship with Keisha Williams since childhood. Everything felt perfectly aligned. "Mama Rose, I'm so grateful," Zara whispered. "Marcus is everything I prayed for, and having Keisha as my maid of honor makes it even more special." As if summoned by her name, Keisha burst through the front door carrying an enormous bouquet of white roses. Her perfectly styled hair bounced as she rushed to embrace Zara. "Girl, these are for you," Keisha exclaimed, her smile radiant. "I wanted to bring something beautiful for your last night as a single woman." Zara hugged her best friend tightly. They had been inseparable since 3rd grade, sharing secrets, dreams, and now this momentous occasion. Keisha had been there through every relationship, every heartbreak, every triumph. "You've been such a blessing in my life," Zara said, tears threatening to fall. "I couldn't imagine doing this without you." Mama Rose observed the scene with knowing eyes. At 85, she had witnessed enough of life to recognize both genuine love and hidden shadows. Something flickered across her expression as she watched Keisha, but she kept her thoughts to herself. Zara's phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Missing you already, beautiful. Having a quiet night in. Can't wait to see you walk down that aisle tomorrow. I love you more than words can say." "Look at this." Zara showed the message to Keisha and Mama Rose. "How did I get so lucky?" Keisha's smile faltered for just a moment before brightening again. "He's perfect for you, Zara. Just perfect." As the evening wound down, Mama Rose pulled Zara aside. "Child, remember what I've always told you about listening to your inner voice. Our ancestors whisper to us through our intuition. If something ever feels wrong, trust that feeling." Zara nodded, though she couldn't imagine why her grandmother would bring this up now. Her life was about to become everything she had ever dreamed of. The morning sun streamed through Zara's apartment windows as she prepared for her wedding day. Her dress hung pristine and waiting, her makeup artist was due in an hour, and her heart felt light with anticipation. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You deserve to know the truth before you say, 'I do.' Check your email." Zara frowned, assuming it was spam or a wrong number. But something made her open her laptop anyway. A new email waited with the subject line, "I'm sorry you have to see this." The message contained only a link to a video file. Zara hesitated, her finger hovering over the mouse. Mama Rose's words about trusting intuition echoed in her mind. She clicked. The video quality was grainy but clear enough. "Hotel room." A timestamp showing yesterday, 11:47 p.m. And there, in devastating clarity, were Marcus and Keisha, tangled together in a passionate embrace that shattered Zara's world in seconds. Zara's hands shook as she watched the man she loved betray her with the woman she trusted most. The timestamp confirmed this happened while she was at Mama Rose's house, talking about gratitude and blessings. The video lasted 3 minutes and 17 seconds. 3 minutes and 17 seconds that destroyed 28 years of trust, 2 years of engagement, and a lifetime of dreams. Zara closed the laptop and sat in complete silence. The wedding was in 4 hours. 200 guests were already preparing to celebrate her union. The flowers were arranged, the cake was perfect, and the church was decorated. Her phone rang. "Marcus. Good morning, my beautiful bride-to-be." His voice was warm and loving. "I barely slept, I'm so excited to marry you today." "Did you sleep well?" Zara asked, her voice surprisingly steady. Like a baby. Had the most peaceful evening. I love you so much, Zara. Each word felt like a knife. Zara ended the call and stared at her wedding dress. A different woman might have called off the wedding, confronted the betrayers, or collapsed in tears. But Zara Johnson was the granddaughter of women who had survived slavery, segregation, and countless injustices. She was the daughter of a mother who had raised her to be strong. She was the product of generations of women who had learned to turn pain into power. She picked up her phone and called her cousin Joy. Joy, I need a favor. Big one. Can you come over right now? And bring your laptop. 30 minutes later, Joy Martinez sat in stunned silence after watching the video. Her tech background had prepared her for many things, but not this. What do you want to do? Joy asked quietly. Zara's eyes were dry, her voice calm. I want everyone to know exactly who they're really dealing with. Marcus and Keisha think they're so clever, playing their parts while I'm the fool. But the show isn't over yet. Zara, are you sure about this? Once you go public, there's no taking it back. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Mama Rose always said our ancestors demand justice, not just forgiveness. It's time for the truth to come out. The bridal suite at Mount Olive Baptist Church buzzed with activity. Zara sat perfectly still as her makeup artist applied the final touches, her face a mask of serene calm that hid the storm brewing inside. You look absolutely radiant, Keisha gushed, adjusting Zara's veil with practiced care. This is going to be the most beautiful wedding our church has ever seen. Zara met her eyes in the mirror. Thank you for being here, Keisha. Your friendship means everything to me. The lie came easily now. Zara had discovered a talent for deception she never knew she possessed. Every smile, every grateful gesture, every loving word was perfectly calculated. Girl, you know I wouldn't miss this for the world, Keisha replied, her own performance flawless. We've been planning this day since we were kids playing dress-up. Zara's phone buzzed with another loving text from Marcus. She showed it to Keisha, who giggled appropriately while her stomach churned with guilt she thought was well hidden. I need a moment alone, Zara announced. Can everyone give me 5 minutes? The room cleared, leaving Zara with her thoughts and her phone. She dialed Mama Rose. How are you feeling, baby? Her grandmother's voice was warm with concern. Mama Rose, I need to tell you something. But I need you to promise not to try to stop me. Silence stretched between them before Mama Rose spoke. I've been around long enough to know when someone's made up their mind. What do you need me to know? Zara told her everything. The video, the betrayal, the plan forming in her mind. When she finished, Mama Rose was quiet for a long moment. Your great-great-grandmother Celia once caught her husband with another woman at a church social, Mama Rose finally said. Instead of suffering in silence like most women did back then, she stood up in front of the whole congregation and told everyone exactly what kind of man he was. People called her crazy, but she said she'd rather be called crazy than be called a fool. What happened to her? She held her head high, raised her children alone, and earned more respect than any woman in that town. Sometimes the truth is the only thing that can set you free, even when it hurts. Zara felt her ancestors' strength flowing through her. I know what I have to do. Then do it with dignity, baby. Make us proud. Keisha returned with the rest of the bridal party, chattering about last-minute details. Zara smiled and nodded, playing her part perfectly while her mind finalized every detail of what was to come. Her phone showed a text from Joy. Everything is ready. Just give me the signal. Zara looked at herself one final time in the mirror. The woman staring back was beautiful, poised, and about to rewrite the rules of her own story. Pastor David Williams stood in his office, reviewing his notes for the ceremony. At 62, he had officiated hundreds of weddings, but something about today felt different. Zara had requested a private meeting that morning, and her unusual request still puzzled him. "Pastor David, I need to ask you something that might sound strange," Zara had said, her voice steady and sure. "Would you be willing to let me make a special presentation during the ceremony? Something about love and loyalty." He had studied her face carefully. "What kind of presentation, child?" "The kind that tells the truth about the people standing at that altar." Pastor David had seen enough of life to recognize when someone was at a crossroads. He had agreed, trusting in Zara's judgment and his own sense that truth, however painful, was always better than deception. Now, as guests filled the sanctuary, he wondered if he had made the right choice. The church was decorated beautifully with white roses and baby's breath. The Johnson and Thompson families sat in their finest clothes, radiating pride and joy. Marcus stood at the altar in his perfectly tailored tuxedo, greeting guests with confident smiles. He had no idea that his world was about to implode. In the back room, Joy Martinez worked quickly and quietly, connecting her laptop to the church's projection system. The large screens normally used for hymns and scripture would serve a very different purpose today. "Are you absolutely sure about this?" Joy whispered to Zara as she made final adjustments. "More sure than I've ever been about anything," Zara replied, her voice unwavering. Chris Johnson, Zara's older brother, approached with concern written across his face. "Z, you seem different today. Everything okay?" Zara hugged him tightly. "Everything's about to be exactly as it should be." Chris studied her face, recognizing the determined expression she had worn as a child when she had made up her mind about something. "Whatever you're planning, I've got your back. I know you do. That's why I love you." The organist began the prelude, and guests settled into their seats. 200 people had gathered to witness what they believed would be a beautiful union. The Johnsons and Thompsons represented some of the most respected families in their community. This wedding was the social event of the year. Mama Rose sat in the front row, her back straight and her eyes alert. She wore her best dress and her grandmother's pearls, looking every inch the family matriarch. When she caught Zara's eye, she nodded once, a gesture of support and encouragement. Marcus's parents beamed with pride. They had always approved of Zara, seeing her as the perfect wife for their successful son. His father, a prominent businessman, had already begun introducing Marcus to important clients as a family man. Keisha took her place at the front of the sanctuary, her smile bright and her bouquet perfectly arranged. She had spent the morning reassuring herself that her betrayal would remain secret, that she could continue being Zara's best friend while harboring her devastating secret. The photographer moved through the crowd, capturing what everyone believed would be precious memories of a perfect day. Instead, he would document the most shocking moment in Mount Olive Baptist Church's history. Pastor David took his place at the altar, his expression calm but his mind racing. He had prayed about this moment, asking for wisdom and strength. Whatever was about to happen, he would face it with dignity and grace. The music swelled, and the congregation rose to their feet. It was time. The church doors opened, and the wedding party began their procession. Keisha walked down the aisle first, her steps graceful and her smile radiant. She looked like the picture of a perfect maid of honor, beautiful and supportive. Marcus watched her approach with carefully controlled expression. They made eye contact briefly, and Keisha's smile flickered almost imperceptibly. Both of them carried the weight of their secret, but neither imagined that their deception had been discovered. The congregation murmured appreciatively as Keisha took her place at the altar. She was stunning in her deep purple dress, chosen specifically by Zara to complement the wedding colors. The music changed, and everyone turned toward the back of the church. The double doors opened wider, and there stood Zara Johnson, a vision in white silk and lace. Her grandmother's pearls gleamed at her throat, and her veil cascaded perfectly down her back. But it was her face that commanded attention. Zara walked with the regal bearing of a queen, her chin high and her eyes bright with purpose. She looked like a woman who knew exactly who she was and what she was about to do. Chris offered his arm, and together they began the long walk down the aisle. Every step was measured and deliberate. Zara's eyes swept the congregation, taking in the faces of family and friends who had come to celebrate what they believed would be the happiest day of her life. Marcus's breath caught as he watched his bride approach. She was breathtaking, more beautiful than he had ever seen her. For a moment, guilt flickered across his face as he remembered the previous night's betrayal. But he pushed it away, convincing himself that what Zara didn't know couldn't hurt her. Mama Rose watched her granddaughter with fierce pride. She saw the strength in Zara's shoulders, the determination in her stride. This was a woman who had inherited the courage of her ancestors, who was about to claim her own power. The photographer captured every moment, the video camera recorded every step. Years later, people would study these images, looking for signs of what was to come. But in that moment, all they saw was a beautiful bride walking toward her future. As Zara reached the altar, she handed her bouquet to Keisha with a smile that never reached her eyes. "Thank you for being here," she said softly. "I wouldn't be anywhere else," Keisha replied. Her voice thick with emotion she hoped people would interpret as joy rather than guilt. Pastor David smiled at the couple as they took their places. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to witness the union of Zara Johnson and Marcus Thompson in holy matrimony." The congregation settled in, expecting the traditional ceremony they had witnessed dozens of times before. None of them knew that Zara had written her own script for this moment. "But before we proceed with the traditional vows," Pastor David continued, following Zara's instructions, "the bride has asked to share something special with all of us about love, loyalty, and truth." Marcus looked confused. This wasn't part of the rehearsal. Keisha's smile faltered slightly as she wondered what surprise Zara had planned. Zara stepped forward, her voice clear and strong. "Thank you all for being here to witness this important moment in my life. I want to share something with you about the true nature of love and loyalty." She nodded to Joy, who was positioned at the back of the church with her laptop. The large screens at the front of the sanctuary flickered to life. "I believe that truth is the foundation of any real relationship," Zara continued, her voice steady as steel. "And I believe that all of you deserve to know the truth about the people standing at this altar." The video began to play. The first few seconds of the video showed only a hotel room, and the congregation murmured in confusion. Then the camera angle shifted, and Marcus and Keisha came into view, locked in a passionate embrace that left no doubt about their relationship. The sanctuary erupted in gasps and exclamations. Several people stood up, trying to get a better view of the screens. Others covered their mouths in shock. The timestamp clearly showed the date and time, the night before the wedding. Marcus's face went ashen. "Zara, I can explain." "No explanation needed," Zara's voice carried clearly over the chaos. "The video speaks for itself." Keisha tried to run, but Chris Johnson had positioned himself strategically at the side exit. She stood frozen, tears streaming down her face as 200 people watched the evidence of her betrayal. "You see," Zara continued, her voice projecting with the clarity of a seasoned speaker, "I learned something yesterday that changed everything. I learned that the two people I trusted most in this world had been deceiving me." The video continued playing, showing Marcus and Keisha in intimate conversation, laughing about something the microphone couldn't quite catch. But their body language told the story clearly enough. "Zara, please." Marcus stepped toward her, but she held up her hand. "Don't. Just don't." Her voice was steel wrapped in silk. "You had your chance to tell the truth. Both of you did. Instead, you chose to let me walk down this aisle believing in a lie." Mama Rose stood up in the front row, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Let my granddaughter speak." The congregation quieted slightly, though the murmur of shocked conversations continued throughout the sanctuary. "I want everyone here to understand something," Zara continued. "I didn't cancel this wedding because I wanted you all to see what you were really celebrating. You were about to witness the marriage of a woman who loved faithfully to a man who betrayed her with her best friend." Mrs. Thompson, Marcus's mother, stood up. "This is ridiculous. Marcus would never." "Mrs. Thompson," Zara's voice was respectful but firm, "the video was taken yesterday at 11:47 p.m. while I was at my grandmother's house talking about how blessed I was to have loyal people in my life. Your son and my maid of honor were together in a hotel room." The video had reached its most damning moments. Several people in the congregation looked away, while others stared in fascination at the destruction of what they had believed was the perfect couple. Pastor David stepped forward. "Perhaps we should." "No," Zara interrupted gently. "Let them see it all. Let them see exactly who they were celebrating." Marcus made one last desperate attempt. "Zara, it was a mistake. It didn't mean anything. Love you. We can work through this." Zara laughed, a sound devoid of humor. "A mistake? You think betraying me with my best friend the night before our wedding was a mistake? You think I should work through this?" She turned to address the congregation directly. "I want to thank all of you for being here today. You've witnessed something important. You've seen what happens when truth meets deception, when loyalty meets betrayal." The video finally ended, leaving the sanctuary in stunned silence. Keisha was sobbing openly, mascara streaking down her face. Marcus stood frozen, his dreams of a perfect life crumbling around him. "The wedding is obviously cancelled," Zara announced. "But I'd like to invite all of you to stay for the reception. Consider it a celebration of truth, justice, and the strength that comes from refusing to live a lie." She looked directly at Marcus and Keisha. "You two are no longer welcome at my celebration. I suggest you leave. Now." The sanctuary buzzed with conversation as the reality of what had just happened sank in. Some guests began to leave, too shocked to stay. Others remained, drawn by the drama and wanting to support Zara in her moment of triumph. Mama Rose made her way to the altar and embraced her granddaughter. "I'm proud of you, baby. You honored your ancestors today." Zara held her grandmother tightly, drawing strength from the woman who had taught her to value truth above comfort, justice above peace. The most shocking wedding in Mount Olive Baptist Church's history was over. But for Zara Johnson, it was just the beginning. The church sanctuary had transformed from a wedding venue into a courtroom where judgment was being passed in whispered conversations. About half the guests had left, unable to process what they had witnessed. The remaining 100 people clustered in small groups, voices rising and falling with shock and speculation. Marcus stood at the altar, his perfect tuxedo now looking like a costume from a play that had gone horribly wrong. His parents flanked him, his mother crying openly while his father's face showed the kind of rage that came from public humiliation. "How could you do this to us?" Mr. Thompson hissed at his son. "Do you have any idea what this will do to our family's reputation? To your career?" Marcus seemed unable to speak, his eyes fixed on Zara as she accepted congratulations from guests who had chosen to stay. She moved through the crowd with grace, thanking people for their support, her composure never wavering. Keisha had collapsed into a pew, her perfect maid of honor facade completely shattered. Her own family surrounded her, their faces showing a mixture of disappointment and embarrassment. Her mother, Mrs. Williams, approached Zara with tears in her eyes. "Zara, honey, I don't know what to say. I'm so sorry. I had no idea Keisha would do something like this." Zara embraced the older woman gently. "Mrs. Williams, this isn't your fault. You raised your daughter to know right from wrong. What she chose to do with that knowledge was her decision." Pastor David had taken control of the situation, directing the remaining guests toward the fellowship hall where the reception was supposed to take place. "If you're staying, let's give Miss Zara the celebration she deserves," he announced. Chris Johnson had appointed himself as security, making sure Marcus and Keisha understood they needed to leave. His sister's strength amazed him, but he could see the cracks in her armor that others missed. "You need to go," he told Marcus firmly. "Now." "Chris, man, you don't understand. Can fix this. I just need to talk to her." "The time for talking was before you slept with her best friend." Chris's voice carried the kind of authority that ended arguments. "Leave. Don't make this worse than it already is." Marcus looked around the sanctuary one final time, perhaps hoping someone would come to his defense. Instead, he found faces filled with disappointment and disgust. He had fallen from golden boy to pariah in the space of 15 minutes. As Marcus and Keisha were escorted out, the remaining guests began to make their way to the fellowship hall. The mood was surreal, part funeral, part celebration, part group therapy session. Mama Rose had claimed a chair near the front and was holding court with the older women of the congregation. "That child did exactly what she should have done," she declared. "Better to face the truth standing up than live a lie on your knees." Mrs. Anderson, who had known Zara since childhood, nodded vigorously. "I always said that girl had backbone. Takes real strength to do what she just did." But not everyone was supportive. Some guests whispered about how Zara could have handled the situation more privately, how she had embarrassed two families unnecessarily. "She could have just called off the wedding," one woman murmured. "Did she have to humiliate them in front of everyone?" Joy Martinez, who had been quietly packing up her equipment, overheard the comment. "She could have suffered in silence while they went on with their lives," she said firmly. Instead, she chose to make sure everyone knew exactly who they were dealing with. The conversation spread throughout the fellowship hall as guests debated Zara's actions. Some saw her as a hero who had refused to be victimized. Others viewed her as vindictive and cruel. Zara herself seemed oblivious to the debate. She moved through the crowd with quiet dignity, accepting condolences and congratulations with equal grace. When someone asked how she was feeling, she smiled and said, "I feel free." But Chris watched his sister carefully and recognized the signs of delayed shock beginning to set in. The adrenaline that had carried her through the confrontation was wearing off, and the full impact of what had happened was starting to hit her. "You okay, Z?" he asked quietly when he found a moment alone with her. "I will be," she replied, but her voice was tired for the first time that day. The reception continued for another hour, with guests unsure whether to celebrate or mourn. Finally, as the afternoon sun began to set, people started to leave. They hugged Zara, promised to call, and walked away shaking their heads at the day's events. As the fellowship hall emptied, Zara sat alone at what should have been the head table. Her wedding dress spread around her like a white pool, and for the first time all day, she looked vulnerable. Mama Rose approached and sat beside her granddaughter. "How you doing, baby?" Zara was quiet for a long moment. "I keep thinking about all the signs I missed. How long this had been going on. How many people might have known. Sometimes the people closest to us are the hardest to see clearly," Mama Rose said softly. "But you saw the truth when it mattered most." "I loved him, Mama Rose. I really loved him." "I know you did. And that makes what you did today even braver." As the sun set on what should have been the happiest day of her life, Zara Johnson sat in her wedding dress, surrounded by empty chairs and the knowledge that her life had just taken a completely different direction. But she was free. The Monday morning after the wedding scandal, news of Zara's public revelation had spread far beyond the walls of Mount Olive Baptist Church. In the age of social media, nothing stayed private for long, and several guests had recorded portions of the confrontation on their phones. Marcus sat in his law office, staring at his computer screen in disbelief. The video had been posted to multiple platforms, and the comments ranged from supportive of Zara to condemning of his actions. His phone hadn't stopped ringing since Sunday evening. "Marcus, we need to talk." His senior partner, James Crawford, stood in the doorway with an expression that suggested the conversation wouldn't be pleasant. 20 minutes later, Marcus emerged from Crawford's office looking shell-shocked. The firm was encouraging him to take a leave of absence while they assessed the impact of the scandal on their reputation. Several clients had already called to express concern about being represented by someone who had shown such poor judgment. "How long?" Marcus asked. "Indefinitely," Crawford replied. "We'll revisit the situation in a few months, depending on how this blows over." Meanwhile, Keisha had barricaded herself in her apartment, refusing to answer calls or texts. Her job at the local bank had already received several inquiries from customers who had recognized her from the video. Her supervisor had suggested she take some personal time to let the situation cool down. But for Zara, the aftermath was proving more complex than she had anticipated. Her phone rang constantly with calls from friends, family, and strangers who had heard about the wedding confrontation. The reactions were mixed and intense. "Girl, you are my hero," one caller said. "I wish I'd had your courage when I caught my husband cheating." But other calls were less supportive. "You should have handled this privately," an acquaintance scolded. "What you did was cruel and unnecessary." Zara's event planning business was experiencing the same divided reaction. Some potential clients were calling to book her services, impressed by her strength and integrity. Others were canceling existing contracts, worried about being associated with the scandal. "I don't know what to think," one bride-to-be said when she called to cancel. "I mean, I understand why you did it, but what if something like that happened at my wedding?" Joy Martinez stopped by Zara's apartment Monday evening, bringing takeout food and moral support. "How are you holding up?" "I'm okay," Zara replied, though she looked exhausted. "I keep getting calls from other women who want to share their stories. Apparently, this kind of thing is more common than I realized." "What do you mean?" "3 different women have called to tell me they suspected Marcus was cheating but didn't know how to tell me. 2 more said they had similar experiences with their own partners. It's like opening the door to this whole world of betrayal that people just live with." Joy studied her cousin's face. "Do you regret it? What you did?" Zara was quiet for a long moment. "No. I regret trusting the wrong people. I regret not seeing the signs earlier. But I don't regret making sure everyone knew the truth." The conversation was interrupted by a knock at the door. Zara opened it to find Mrs. Thompson, Marcus's mother, standing in the hallway with red eyes and a determined expression. "I need to talk to you," the older woman said. They sat in Zara's living room, an awkward silence stretching between them. Mrs. Thompson had always treated Zara like a daughter, and the pain of the situation was evident on her face. "I want you to know that I'm ashamed of my son," Mrs. Thompson began. "What he did was inexcusable. But did you have to destroy him publicly? He's lost his job, his reputation, everything." Zara met her eyes steadily. "Mrs. Thompson, I understand you're hurt. But your son destroyed himself when he chose to betray me. I just made sure everyone knew the truth. But the humiliation, the public spectacle, was necessary," Zara interrupted gently. "Because if I had handled this privately, how many people would have believed it was just a misunderstanding? How many would have pressured me to forgive and forget? How many would have blamed me for not trying hard enough to save the relationship?" Mrs. Thompson was quiet, unable to argue with the logic. "Your son didn't just cheat on me," Zara continued. "He did it with my best friend the night before our wedding, while 200 people were preparing to celebrate our love. That level of betrayal deserved public consequences." After Mrs. Thompson left, Zara sat alone in her apartment, processing the week's events. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, Thank you for showing me that I don't have to accept betrayal in silence. You've given me the courage to leave my cheating husband. It was messages like this that reminded Zara why she had chosen public exposure over private suffering. She was becoming a symbol of something larger than her own personal pain. By the end of the week, #WeddingTruth was trending on social media, with women sharing their own stories of betrayal and the courage it took to walk away from relationships that weren't serving them. Zara Johnson had wanted justice. Instead, she had accidentally started a movement. 3 months after the wedding that never was, Zara sat in Dr. Patricia Williams's office, a box of tissues within reach and a journal in her lap. Therapy had been Mama Rose's suggestion, though it had taken Zara several weeks to make the appointment. I keep having dreams about the wedding, Zara said, her voice steady but tired. But in the dreams, I'm the one who gets exposed. Like somehow I'm the one who did something wrong. Dr. Williams, a soft-spoken woman in her 50s, nodded encouragingly. Guilt is a common response to public confrontation, even when you're the victim. Your subconscious is processing the magnitude of what you did. I don't feel guilty about exposing them, Zara clarified. I feel guilty about enjoying it. About the satisfaction I felt when I saw their faces. Is that wrong? It's human. You had been betrayed by the two people you trusted most. Feeling satisfaction when justice was served doesn't make you a bad person. The therapy sessions were helping, but the real healing was happening in unexpected places. Zara's apartment had become an informal gathering place for women who had reached out to her after the wedding video went viral. Every Thursday evening, about 8 women met in her living room. They called themselves the Truth Tellers, and they shared stories of betrayal, recovery, and the courage it took to choose themselves over comfortable lies. I stayed with him for 2 years after I found out, shared Michelle, a nurse who had discovered her husband's affair through a credit card statement. I thought I was being mature, working through it. Now I realize I was just being afraid. The hardest part was accepting that I wasn't crazy, added Carmen, whose boyfriend had been gaslighting her for months while seeing someone else. Everyone kept telling me I was paranoid, that I was imagining things. Turns out my instincts were right all along. Zara listened to these stories and felt a strange sense of purpose. Her public humiliation had given other women permission to stop accepting betrayal in silence. I got a call from a reporter yesterday, she told the group. She wants to write an article about women who choose public exposure over private suffering. She called it, "The New Divorce Culture." Are you going to do it? Asked Sandra, whose husband had left her for his secretary. I don't know. Part of me wants to move on, put this behind me. But another part of me thinks maybe this conversation needs to happen. The group encouraged her to consider it. Their stories had shown Zara that her experience wasn't unique, but her response to it was. Most women who discovered infidelity either left quietly or stayed and tried to work it out. Very few chose public accountability. Meanwhile, Marcus had been making attempts to contact her. He left voicemails, sent letters, and even showed up at her business once before Chris escorted him away. His messages all carried the same theme. He wanted to make amends, to prove that he had changed, to win back her trust. He keeps saying it was a moment of weakness, Zara told Dr. Williams. Like sleeping with my best friend was equivalent to eating too much chocolate cake. How do you respond to that? I don't. I've blocked his number, returned his letters unopened, and made it clear that I have no interest in reconciliation. But sometimes I wonder if I'm being too harsh. Do you want to reconcile with him? Zara considered the question carefully. No, you don't. And that's what scares me sometimes. How completely my feelings for him died in that moment when I saw the video. It's like someone flipped a switch, and all the love I felt just disappeared. That's not unusual. Betrayal trauma can cause what we call emotional numbing, as a protective mechanism. The thing is, I've learned things about Marcus since the wedding that I never knew. 3 different women have contacted me to say they suspected he was cheating, not just with Keisha. Apparently, this was a pattern. Dr. Williams leaned forward. How does that make you feel? Grateful. Grateful that I found out before I married him. Grateful that I didn't waste years of my life trying to fix something that was never real in the first place. One evening, as the Truth Tellers group was wrapping up, Keisha appeared at Zara's door. She looked terrible, thin, exhausted, and completely different from the confident woman who had stood as maid of honor 3 months earlier. "I know you don't want to see me," Keisha said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I need to say something." Zara looked at her former best friend with detached curiosity. "You have 5 minutes. "I was jealous," Keisha said, tears streaming down her face. "I was jealous of your success, your happiness, your perfect life. When Marcus started flirting with me at your engagement party, I should have shut it down. Instead, I encouraged it." "How long?" Zara asked. 6 months. We never meant for it to go as far as it did. Started as just attention. Someone wanting me instead of you for once." Zara felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no satisfaction. Just a cold, empty space where her friendship with Keisha used to be. "I've lost everything," Keisha continued. "My job, my reputation, my family's respect. I had to move back in with my parents. I can't even go to the grocery store without people staring at me. Is that supposed to make me feel sorry for you? I need you to know that I'm sorry. I destroyed the most important relationship in my life for something that meant nothing." Zara studied the woman who had been her best friend for over 20 years. "You didn't destroy our friendship in a moment of weakness, Keisha. You destroyed it with 6 months of deliberate choices. You looked me in the eye every day, helped me plan my wedding, listened to me talk about how grateful I was to have you in my life, and you smiled and lied. I know I did. But can't you find it in your heart to forgive me? I don't hate you, Keisha. I don't wish bad things for you. But I don't forgive you either. Some things can't be fixed with an apology." After Keisha left, Zara sat in her apartment feeling strangely peaceful. She had expected the confrontation to be more emotional, but instead it had provided closure. She was ready to move forward. 6 months after the wedding that shook Mount Olive Baptist Church, Zara Johnson stood in the lobby of the Marriott downtown, adjusting her blazer and checking her watch. She was meeting a potential client, a successful businesswoman who had specifically requested Zara's services after reading the article about her story. "I want someone who understands the importance of authenticity," the woman had said during their phone consultation. "Someone who won't let me settle for anything less than the truth." Zara's event planning business had not only survived the scandal but had actually grown. She had found her niche working with women who wanted celebrations that reflected their real values rather than social expectations. Her tagline had become, "Authentic celebrations for authentic lives." The Truth Tellers group had expanded to include 12 regular members, and Zara had been invited to speak at 3 women's conferences about the power of choosing truth over comfort. She never talked about revenge or getting even. Instead, she focused on the importance of honoring yourself enough to demand honesty from others. "Miss Johnson." A voice interrupted her thoughts. She turned to see a familiar face. Pastor David, looking slightly older but still carrying himself with the same quiet dignity. "Pastor David. What a nice surprise." "I'm here for a conference," he explained. "But I wanted to tell you something. Do you have a minute?" They found a quiet corner in the lobby, and Pastor David's expression grew serious. "I've been thinking about that day at the church. About the choice you made and the choice I made to support you. Do you regret it?" "No. But I wanted you to know that it changed something in me. In how I counsel couples, in how I think about truth and forgiveness. 3 different women have come to me since then, asking for help leaving relationships where they were being betrayed or mistreated. Zara felt a warm glow of satisfaction. That's wonderful. They all mentioned your example. How you showed them that they didn't have to accept betrayal quietly. You've helped more people than you know. After Pastor David left, Zara reflected on how much her life had changed. The woman who had walked down the aisle 6 months ago had been focused on pleasing others, on maintaining relationships at any cost. The woman she had become was focused on living authentically, even when it was difficult. Her phone buzzed with a text from a number she didn't recognize. "Hi, this is David Martinez, Joy's brother. She gave me your number and said you might be interested in getting coffee sometime. No pressure, but I'd love to meet the woman who's got my little sister so inspired." Zara smiled. She had been slowly opening herself up to the possibility of dating again, but this time with very different criteria. She was looking for someone who valued honesty, who could handle her strength, and who understood that she would never again compromise her self-respect for the comfort of others. That evening, she visited Mama Rose, who was sitting on her front porch shelling peas and holding court with several neighborhood women. "How's my granddaughter doing?" Mama Rose asked, patting the chair beside her. "I'm good, Mama Rose. Really good. I can see that. You look different. Lighter." Zara settled into the chair and helped with the peas. "I've been thinking about what you said the day before the wedding. About listening to my inner voice. About trusting my ancestors' wisdom. What about it? I think I understand now that the wisdom wasn't just about recognizing betrayal. It was about knowing that I deserved better. That I didn't have to accept lies just to keep peace." Mama Rose nodded approvingly. "Your great-great-grandmother Celia would be proud. She always said that a woman who knows her worth can't be fooled by anyone who doesn't value her." "I got a call from a publisher yesterday," Zara said. "They want me to write a book about my experience. About choosing truth over comfort. About the importance of public accountability. You going to do it?" "I think so. If it helps other women find their courage, then maybe everything that happened was worth it." As the sun set over the neighborhood where Zara had grown up, she felt a profound sense of peace. The woman who had been betrayed by her fiancé and best friend had become someone stronger, more authentic, and more purposeful. Marcus had sent one final letter the week before, which she had returned unopened. She had heard through mutual friends that he had moved to another city, trying to rebuild his career and reputation. She wished him well but felt no curiosity about his life. Keisha had apparently joined a church in the next town and was working as a cashier at a discount store. Several people had told Zara that her former friend often spoke about the lessons she had learned from their destroyed friendship. Zara felt no satisfaction in Keisha's struggles, but she also felt no obligation to help her heal. "I'm proud of you, baby," Mama Rose said as they watched the stars appear in the darkening sky. "You honored your ancestors and yourself. That's all any of us can do." Zara squeezed her grandmother's hand. "I couldn't have done it without you. Without knowing that I came from a line of strong women who refused to accept less than they deserved. That strength is in you now. And someday, you'll pass it on to the next generation." As she drove home that night, Zara thought about the future. She was building a business that aligned with her values, surrounding herself with people who celebrated authenticity, and slowly opening her heart to the possibility of love again. But this time, love built on truth rather than comfortable illusions. The woman who had been betrayed at the altar had become someone who couldn't be betrayed again, because she had learned to trust herself above all others. 6 months ago, she had been preparing for a wedding that would have been built on lies. Now she was building a life that was built on truth. And that, Zara decided, was a much better foundation for everything that was to come.